Thank you. Good evening and welcome to the July 4th meeting of the.
July 14th.
July 14th? July 14th, thank you, Amanda.
Sure.
14th meeting of the Norfolk Select Board. Welcome and thank you for your interest in participating or even just watching is okay with us too. Watching the town government of Norfolk, we're grateful for your interest. And we're going to start by standing and facing the flag for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, and I just want to ask everybody to kind of bear with us. We are in between town administrators, and I'm going to do my best at this, so thank you. And so we're going to start by opening it up for public comment. And so if you're on Zoom, you can raise your hand. If you're in the room, you can raise your hand, your virtual hand and your real hand. No public comment at this time. And so, excellent, thank you. And the next thing we would like is to consider the approval of the design development phase of the fire station committee project. And I'll turn it over to Kevin.
Yep. Kevin Champagne, 2 Seneca Street, Chair of the Fire Station Building Committee. Thanks for having us here tonight. As you mentioned, we're here to present the design development documents, or a kind of abbreviated version of the design development documents. We'll have the full version on the Fire Station Building Committee website, and provide you a little bit of a project status. We continue to make good progress, and we continue to be on track aiming for a fall town bid, or for a bid of the construction documents in the fall, and then a vote with a bid in hand in the winter, assuming that you guys give us approval to move to the construction document phase tonight, which we'll ask for. We've had some community events recently where we had some good attendance. We feel like we're getting a little bit of traction. There were some very thoughtful questions and comments when we met at the library. And then we had boards, and I know the chief and myself and a couple of the other committee members talked to some members of the public at Community Day, which was great. We met some people that knew nothing about the project, which that is disappointing to us, but it was good to talk to them and kind of bring them up to speed of what we're doing and what we're trying to accomplish. We're also starting the pre-qualification process, so we'll form a subcommittee to pre-qualify contractors and subcontractors so that when it is bid in the fall, there's only specific contractors and subcontractors that can bid the projects, ones that we feel are capable of doing the project. So Vertex will be heading up that effort, but it'll be a subcommittee of a couple of committee members, Doran Whittier and the OPM. So I'll hand it over to Doran Whittier shortly, and at the conclusion we can certainly respond to any of your questions. So you'll see we've continued to simplify and streamline the design. Ron can walk through a series of reductions that we've made that we feel could be made and keep the same quality building but keep the budget on track. You'll also see that the project cost has stayed, I think actually slightly below where it was originally estimated at the feasibility study and the schematic design study, which is great. Now that the documents are getting a little more meat on the bone, that the hope was that the price would not increase, but we've been able to keep it steady with hard work by the fire department, certainly, to do that. We've also done what's called a reconciled estimate. So up until this stage, Doran Whittier's cost estimator has been the sole cost estimating on the project for design development, and assuming, again, that you give us approval to move to construction documents, we'll do it again at construction documents. Vertex also has an independent cost estimator. They prepare 2 separate cost estimates and then meet to reconcile. You'll see tonight they're within $200,000 of each other, which is great for a $25 million project. So we feel that the number is pretty solid. So with that, I'll turn it over to Doran Whittier to walk you through it, and then we can open it up to any questions you might have.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, and if you have any questions during this presentation, just stop, right? I don't want to sound like I'm dictating anything. So we would like to thank, as Kevin said, you know, all the hard work of the building committee members, of Todd, and obviously Steve in his office, and then every department agency, actually, or every department in town has met with us. We met again just a few weeks ago to go over everything, and to make sure everybody was in agreement with what we were doing. And then obviously the fire department staff, who have either commented to the chief after reviewing things or actually sat in our working group meetings. Just as a reminder, we are building the new building on the existing site. This is an aerial photograph of the existing site here, this being the existing fire station. This is the temporary / staff are housed, and then this is the garage out back, the storage garage. We do have some constraints on the site in terms of setbacks for both the building and the green belt, given that we are surrounded by residential properties. We have been working very closely with the planning board and the zoning board. We're meeting with the zoning board again next week to review some special permits allowable by the bylaws. And again, everybody's been incredibly helpful, going through all of these site constraints and the design. So the design itself, this is the new building, if you will. It sits on the site right behind the existing station. And just a reminder again about the phasing, we're gonna build the existing station first while the trailer and the station remain operational. Once the new station is complete, the fire department will move in. We will then demo the trailer and the existing fire station, and then we'll finish the site work out front. And as you can see here, this is just a development of the plan that has been submitted to the planning board for formal approval. It's gotten a peer review from the agency working with the town planner, and then the zoning board has also seen this, as well as all the department heads. So going forward, the plans have relatively stayed exactly the same. You know, we believe, working with the chief and working with all of the department heads, that what this is gonna result in is not only a 21st century fire station, but it's also gonna be a benefit to the community in terms of quicker response, more health and safety situation for the staff that's there, and obviously NFPA and completely code compliant. So some of the things that Kevin hinted at is, this is a list, and again, this will be on the website. I don't know if everybody can read this or see this. Maybe I can make it a little bit bigger. You know, but the reality is, we have taken great pains to go through every step of the way and try to say, how can we streamline this? How can we make it more cost effective? So just in terms of rooms that you would find in a 21st century fire station, we have found other ways to provide these amenities without actually building these rooms. So you see here, written in red, DSD, means that we've actually made this decision after schematic design. So even though we presented you a project with the schematic design last time we met, we were not stopping that process of streamlining. So this is just a long list, from cost-reducing measures to measures that actually cost less money but give you a much better sustainable and an energy-efficient building. So you're saving money on both ends. And then planning spatial efficiencies throughout the project itself. This is an updated view. Any questions on that list? I know you're reading some of those things off.
No, I'm okay for the moment.
There is a much more detailed room-by-room list that
Yeah.
I think is already on the website, but this is kind of a high-level
Okay.
review.
So what you see here is an updated exterior design for the building. We've worked very close with the design review board as well. Again, building committee members, town department heads, and then we've also got a lot of feedback from the community. So the community has seen this, they're very receptive to it. We have had discussions of how white is the white, and whether it should be sort of an off-white towards a little bit of a gray. And the community concern is that they don't want it to look dirty over time. And the combination of using gray volumes as well as white volumes to break down the scale. And just remember that this is about 100 feet back from the street, so it's much further back from the road than the existing. So this view would be as if you're heading towards the town center, and this view would be if you're coming from Dunkin' Donuts in the town center, heading east. And you can see the training stairs in the back there. We have obviously modified the design a little bit based on our last meeting.
One thing I'll point out
Yep.
too, if you go back to the one more slide, it's not added in here yet, but there will be a monument area in the front of the
Yep.
facility.
Right here,
With a
yep.
the flagpole. Oh, you have the flagpole there.
Mhm.
I'll let that added.
Yep.
All right.
But I
It
think.
wasn't there the other night.
Right, I think what Kevin's pointing out is that there'll also be some hedges along the sidewalk.
Yes, that's it.
Because we also have, this is part of our drainage system, which is a way, again, to reduce the cost of the project, treat the water on-site, which is your MS4 requirement, build some bioretention areas, and, have it be done that in a safe way. So, and we've got just a hedge along the sidewalk that you don't see here. So again, this is the other view, as you can see. And then one thing we did want to point out, because the community was kind of happy to see this, even though it looks from the front, obviously, right, like we've got all these traditional roofs, the reality is that we're only building the pitched roof to comply with the requirements of the bylaws. So it gives you that Norfolk feel, if you will. But we are also maximizing flat roof area for future solar panels. And so that is also incorporated into the project. And having the roof be solar ready is also a requirement of the stretch code, which was adopted by the town some time ago. So as Kevin pointed out, we're at design development, and the total project cost broken down by these categories here is we're at 24,734,062, whereas last time we met, we were at 25,109,038. So again, these are estimates, and when I think the benefit of the process that we're going through right now is to complete these drawings by November, bid the project, and then you'll actually have bids in hand. So we'll get our bids back on December 22nd, and you'll be able to go to the community saying this is the actual number with the actual low bidder. So although these estimates are great, that bid is going to be really what we're targeting. And it's just a work in progress, and as Kevin pointed out, it's not only us estimating it now, but it's also Steve's firm, Vertex.
It's with separate cost estimators, and as Kevin and Ron said, we had them separately estimate the DD documents. Then we came together in a conference call that lasted a couple hours and went through all the line items, and they went back and forth on things that, may not have been understood properly, and sort of reconciled their estimates and came within $200,000 of each other, which is pretty good on a $18 million construction cost. So that, it really says that, we've got a good handle on what our construction cost estimate is at this point. And then we'll do that again, provided we go on to the construction document phase.
Can you, just for my own knowledge or learning, could you give me an example of one kind of item that you talked about, just to have a reference? In the reconciliation I don't need you to explain the whole thing. I absolutely trust it, and I value that step in the process. Just for my own learning, could you share one example of an item that you might have discussed?
Well, again, we discussed every item. One item that they really agreed pretty much on from the beginning was the cost for the elevator. They're within $5,000 of each other on that. That was an easy one, not a lot of discussion. When we got into the site work, there was some interpretation of what exactly the site work, what the design was, and we sort of went back and forth, making sure that they understood what the scope was, because we're living it and they're just seeing it for a short period of time. So with Ron's input on this is what we intend, then they looked at it and said, okay, I misunderstood that, I can take this away. You know, there was an issue with the tight tank, there's some quantities of gravel that were misunderstood. That's where we sort of narrowed down things. And in some cases, it might be a deduct, in other cases, it might be an add to one of them. But we want to really make sure that we have a real number.
Thank you.
And I would say that, you know, some of that discussion is inherent to where Doran Whittier is in the process, that, not that the drawings aren't gonna be clear when they're done, these are design development is a step in the process, so the design is not complete. So that's why, you know, Ron's team is important when they're discussing these items, to make sure that everything's in the budget.
Yes, no surprises.
Yeah, so, you know, another real good example is, because it is design development, they're also trying to figure out what's not in the drawings. So we have this meeting so that we can clarify. So for instance, if the new cost estimator that's working with Steve and said, well, every fire station has a dedicated public address system. Well, this one doesn't, because we've tied to the alert system. So they have speakers and the ability to make announcements through the alert system, but we're not gonna have a secondary public address system. It's a way to save money. It's not the traditional way to do it. It's kind of a creative way to do it, working with both the chief and dispatch in terms of putting that together. So those were, you know, just some other things that allowed us to get the numbers reconciled.
Thank you.
So the schedule is such, again, that we have gone through schematic design, we've finished design development, we're starting construction documents, hopefully tonight. We're looking to complete the bid documents at the beginning of November. That's going to give you your bids in hand just before the holidays. When you have your January town meeting and your vote, you'll be able to, again, this is the actual number, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. These are then the contingencies, you know, so this isn't an estimate that's gonna, you know, change. And then if all things go according to plan at town meeting, construction will start in March, as soon as the ground thaws. There's a lot of upfront work that the contractor will need to do in terms of ordering long lead time items. And then we plan to occupy the building sometime in August, and then finish the site work by October. So,
Of 24.
Of the following year.
of, excuse me,
I
yeah,
was gonna say,
2024.
That'd be pretty good.
Yeah, that'd be really good.
Yeah, yeah. So we jumped from March of '23 starting construction to August '24. So, I mean, essentially, that's basically what we had for everybody tonight. We hope you obviously approve us to move forward and stay on schedule and stay on the plan.
Before I pass the doorway, I should have asked you if you had anything to add, Chief.
Oh, I mean, you know, both Vertex and Doran Whittier and the committee, you know, it's been a pleasure to work, you know, through this process and to, you know, really get into the detail and the design of the building. I think having the expertise of some of the town residents who are engineers and civil engineers and architects by trade has really helped me, because a lot of this stuff is a little over my head. I know from the fire department stuff what we need, and can tell them, hey, I need X, Y, and Z. They've been able to put it together and address the needs of the department, you know, very effectively. And it's been a joy to put in the work and to kind of see it come together and see a drawing of what it may look like. It's kind of been, you know, a fun part of the process. Looking forward to continuing and seeing how much more we can whittle away and make it even better.
Thank you. You have questions?
I do. So first and foremost, thank you so much for the presentation. Kevin, Chief, thank you so much for every bit of work that the committee has done up until this point. Admittedly, I have not jumped into as many discussions with other boards and committees as I would have liked to over the course of the last couple of weeks. So I was hoping, Ron, if you might be able to just give us a high-level summary about how those discussions are going with boards like the Planning Board, and identify some of the points of interest that they've brought up, and also what are some of the open items that you're still following up with them on.
Sure, great question. So the planning board has reviewed everything. What you see here in this diagram or this rendering are a bunch of trees planted along the church, right? So the only thing the planning board is asking us to resolve, if you will, is there's a drainage structure here, which if you go out to the site, it's the drainage piece for the parking lot of the church. It actually kind of hovers on both your property and the church property. There is a utility easement written into the deed when the land was purchased from the church, when, you know, this parcel was purchased where the station's going. So the question is, where does the green belt start and where does it stop? So one thing we did is we submitted to zoning for a variance not to have to build in the utility easement. However, we've asked them to just table that for the time being because the planning board is asking us to take a look at sight lines. So as the trucks leave the station and they look this way towards Dunkin' Donuts, if we planted trees here, what does that do to affect the sight lines? Because they're concerned, even though the bylaw says plant the trees, it may be a public safety issue in terms of cars coming from town center, heading east, in terms of them being able to see the trucks, and then the trucks being able to see them. So in addition to that, they're also asking us to put together something that would be sort of a win-win. In other words, could we do the screening in a different way? The building inspector has already, as you see here on this side, told us that we could be 40 feet off the property line for views, you know, because the building inspector also had that concern, make sure we're not blocking any sight lines. But in this condition here, there are street trees that were planted by the town, and so it just makes it a little bit more difficult, if you will. So that, for instance, is one thing that the planning board's asking us to review. The zoning board also has it in their hands. The second thing the zoning board is doing is reviewing our request for special permit, which is allowed by the bylaw. In order to put this driveway in here, we have to reduce the side yard setback from 50 to 30 feet. And in the bylaws, they're able to allow that special permit, so the zoning board is looking at that. From a planning board perspective, we can put our parking on the side of the building and in the back of the building. So we're asking the planning board by special permit, which is allowed, to review and approve the location of the parking spaces. In addition, this is a public building, so you can kind of see it two ways, that this is a non-recreational public facility, in which case, if you do the math, we're just under 20 required parking spaces. However, you could also look at this as a mixed-use building, and if we do that, we need about 60 parking spaces. And the reality is, the chief has kind of looked at what he needs for staff, what he needs for the training spaces and so forth, and he's asked for 31 spaces. So we've asked the planning board, which they're allowed to do by special permit, to either increase or decrease the parking, to basically get us to where we have requested. The only other thing the planning board is looking at is that we don't see how, this is all existing vegetation, and again, by special permit, the planning board has the ability to say there's already screening in place, so the town doesn't have to spend the money on planting trees to screen trees. And so they're looking at that. And then lastly, sorry, just high level. Lastly, the building bylaws say 40 feet, and by special permit, you can go to 46 feet. So our building is 46 feet, so we've asked the planning board to approve that special permit. So those are the conversations we've been having with both planning and zoning, and the building inspector, actually, as well as the wiring inspector and DPW, and everybody else.
Perfect, thank you. And just one last note, in the upper left-hand corner there, I see that we're getting duplexes there where Old Town Hall is. Is this a BOGO situation? Are we getting two projects?
What is it?
Old Town Hall and the
I have no idea what that is. It's just a big square.
So I was thinking about sightlines too, when you talked about the hedges on the other corner, because that's definitely a sightline situation too there for the other side.
Those would be low. Those would be like 30 inches off the ground.
Okay.
Yeah, just a little barrier so the dogs don't, run in there.
Cool. And then, I want to echo what Kevin said. Every time we meet, I'm impressed with the process. And I'm impressed with the dedication and the thoughtfulness. And every time it's tweaked and adjusted and lifted. And so thank you for that. And the one thing that jumped out at me, only because I know of how things are, it says you're going to use the existing septic, and I'm assuming that's okay?
Yes.
That
Yep.
seems unlikely, but it does work to use the existing septic?
It actually does. So a couple things happened there. They didn't use the DEP requirements for the septic when they first built it. They actually used actual water use, which is another compliant path to take with DEP. And by doing that, it was actually oversized a little bit. So, you know, when that happened, it's really a good thing, right? So, running the calculations for the septic, we're allowed to do that. There is a holding tank and a pump chamber associated with this septic system. We are changing out the holding tank and the pump chamber. So both those structures will be replaced because they're old. But in terms of the leach field, it's actually good to go.
Excellent, that's awesome.
Yep.
I don't think I have any other questions.
None from my end either.
Awesome. I'll entertain a motion.
I move that the board approve the design development phase and authorize the fire station building committee to commence construction documents.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye. Thank you
so
very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Much.
Thank you so much. Please thank
I
you,
don't
committee.
know if we should stay up here. I know we had another item as well. Was it?
Yeah, about the charge.
Yeah. A number of
The
committee
next
members.
item is to reduce the charge back to
Number
the
three.
number of
Yes.
members back to 7.
Oh, yes. And so that was just a logistical, because we changed the charge one time based on an assumption that didn't actually come out, and so just changing the charge.
Well, yeah, so originally the thought process was we added the finance director because we knew there was going to be a gap, or the town administrator was going to be leaving to have someone with the town still involved with the committee until the new town administrator came on board. So right now, we had one resident, John Kent, who did not choose to be renewed. So we have that opening as well. So I guess my assumption was that we could leave the finance director and town administrator positions on the board for now. And then, once the town administrator was on board, we could see if we swap that out with another resident. I'm not aware of any residents that have expressed interest in joining the board, but that would be my suggestion.
Is that okay with you?
Sure.
Really sure?
Sure.
Okay. So then, what you're, because I'm just going to clarify, the motion here is to amend the charge, but you're saying we should not amend the charge at this time.
Well, I think you would need to remove one resident position from the committee. So,
Question.
Yes.
is because the finance director is a town resident, do we even have to, I mean, we'd have to amend the charge still, it'd still be at 7, but the finance director would stay on because he is a town resident, and quite honestly, it's been helpful to have him in some of the meetings with, you know, his expertise in the numbers and kind of, you know, he's been there for some of the detailed design stuff to say, hey, you know, that number times this number reduces by this, and we, you know, just those little things have been helpful and insightful from my perspective, you know.
From my perspective, I would be inclined to leave everything as is. We have an open position that would require take an action to appoint a new resident to the committee. So we have to meet anyway, and in that meeting, we'd be able to make any adjustment to the charge or the number of members if we needed to do so at that time. So from my perspective, I would say that we keep the committee as is. We don't make any actions on the charge right now. We appreciate everything that Mr. Lindmark has been contributing up to this point and will contribute in the future. And we look forward to whichever resident is going to come forward to join the committee next.
Awesome. I'm very comfortable with that. As long as you're comfortable, it's a commitment, so thank you. Thank you. So do we have to move, since we're not moving, can we just go on to the next without a motion?
you,
I just don't believe we take action. We move on to the
Just
next
don't
item.
take any
Just don't
action on
take
it, and we don't need to vote not to take action.
Correct.
We can just go on to the next. Thank you very much. All right, so we're going to leave it alone, and things go as they go.
Okay. Do we need to discuss the zoning board?
Oh, the signature?
I have it with me.
And so the question is, do we have the authority to sign the extension? Is that correct?
So the question was, and I apologize to keep dragging our
No, it's
our
okay.
status out here, but, Rich McCarthy needs the zoning board of appeals is gonna continue our request for a variance to December. It's a question of who can sign this document. Normally, it would have been the town administrator. He asked if I could sign it. I honestly didn't know if I could sign it, or if it needs to be someone from the town. I think Vertex had mentioned maybe it needed to be town council that signs it. I honestly don't know. I have no issue signing it, but I think because I was appointed by the select board, maybe you would need to give me the authority to sign it.
And so it's just asking for a continuance on something that's already been approved.
So we put, it's the variance of not planting in the green belt in the vicinity of that drainage easement. So we asked for that variance. They're not gonna act on the variance because we're looking at some other alternatives, including possibly rezoning a portion of the church property, which would happen at fall town meeting. That's why it's being continued to December, in which case we may be able to withdraw the variance if we get some resolution to it. So that's why it's being continued.
And so, thank you for reminding me about that. And I think that one of us could sign it or both of us could sign it, but maybe we should ask town council if that's okay?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. In every case, asking town council is the better way to go. In reading this, I would imagine that Kevin, as the chair of the committee, who is in turn the applicant for this process, would be able to sign without any authority be given by us. But absolutely, I would prefer to have town council
Okay.
say that's
Yeah,
the
and
case.
our meeting is Wednesday night. I think as long as we get some feedback
Before
before then,
Wednesday.
it's fine.
Yep,
So, all right, thank you.
I'll take care of that, and thank you for reminding me about that.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, Chief.
Hillary, come on up. So number 4 is please consider a motion modifying please consider modifying an order for a nuisance dog owner owned by Stacy Palmer. And we'll let Hillary bring us up to speed.
Sure. Ooh, the chair's already warm. So I did reach out to both parties involved in the most recent incident. I have had correspondence with the complainant via email on a few different topics during this time. I have not received any feedback from the dog owner as to the questions that I had regarding insurance and compliance with the previous order. And they were both it was both known that I was going to be bringing this forward for a modification. And I did speak with both sides about the possible amendments coming down the pike. So I wasn't sure if anybody was going to be here tonight, but I did, let people know that it could be Zoom or in person. So here I am.
Okay.
So in 2012, I came forward for a restraint order for this dog due to repeated issues with the animal running loose and harming other dogs that were being walked on public ways or trespassing on other people's properties and harming their dogs. And that was granted, and in 2013, the board held a hearing to determine whether the dog would be classified as a nuisance or dangerous dog. And in 2013, the dog was declared a nuisance dog with parameters that were put into place to curb any behavior that could cause another incident. And I will say for many, many years, I had not had a complaint. And routinely what I do with dogs that are on an order is once or twice a year, I do just drive by their properties. I don't stop and, ask them to show me what is going on. But I do drive by their properties, and I noticed that one of the fence lines for this property where the dog resides had changed. And I emailed the dog owner asking, is this dog still around with us, or has it been rehomed? And she said, no, she had the dog. So, and she said she still had the fence, she just made it more enclosed towards the backyard instead of, the right side of the property and the backyard. And so that, there was no violation at that time. There was no reasonable suspicion or probable cause to believe that I would need to act on anything. And so we fast forward to, I apologize here. It's been a very busy day today. May 20th, when I was dispatched after hours for a dogfight in progress. And in that incident, the dog that is subject to the nuisance dog order and the restraint order somehow breached its enclosure and walked down the street and did attack and aggress and grab multiple times their neighbor's dog, picked it up and shook it, did not cause any punctures or any type of sustainable injury that was visible to the owners. Obviously, the owners were incredible children and their other dogs. And it was a situation where by the time I was on scene, I was driving around the corner to go up to Shirley Lane, and the victim family who lives at the corner was motioning for me to go up the dog owner's house, and I did arrive. Along with the victim dog owner's male party that lives down on the corner, and he felt uneasy about leaving the dog loose in case there was a secondary attack or another animal could have been impacted in that neighborhood. I did notice that the dog in question, Maya, she is an elderly dog. She does suffer from a couple of health complications, in my opinion, as far as arthritis and the situation like that. But what was concerning to me was that the dog was outdoors without anybody home on the property. When I tried to make contact with the dog owner over the telephone prior to dispatch, when I was en route, there was no live answer, and I didn't receive a call back for approximately 15, 20 minutes until I was on scene. It did appear that there was a landscape company that had been on that property earlier in that day. Possibly they had left a gate unlatched. The one thing that I did notice in this situation is that the parameters of a locked fence, those were not met. There was a small end of a bungee cord, a very old bungee cord, just the metal clip with the rubber on the end. In no way is that considered a locking mechanism. There is multiple patched holes in the fence line that, I think have been holding Maya in for the most part. If Maya was her old self back in 2012, it would have certainly posed a problem. And the fact that nobody was available to take custody of the animal in that situation was problematic. We do not want to take animals of that age and medical condition and place them in a kennel environment. It would stress them out. Thankfully, I was able to make contact with the dog owner, and she did provide me with instructions on how I could place Maya inside the enclosed dwelling to mitigate the circumstances in Maya's best interest. So I am coming before you because I do believe, even though Maya is a geriatric canine, we have seen that the behavior pattern has not changed. If she is allowed that opportunity to get out, she has the triggers which give her that propensity to go after other dogs. And I want to try to mitigate that in a way that she doesn't have to go through those triggers. It's not, behaviorally sustainable for a dog to be allowed to have those kind of triggering reactions, and therefore they cross that behavior threshold and they act on what their instinct is. And Huskies and Malamutes notoriously are very opinionated. I've owned a husky. I've owned one husky. That kind of describes how opinionated they are. Mine gave me a run for my money. So what I am asking the board is just for an amendment where I can do twice a year announced inspections. In other words, I'm not just going to cold call and knock on their door and break curtilage laws and go around their property. And also, I'm requesting that that when no one who is an adult is home, that Maya is not left in the outside enclosure. One, it doesn't meet the standards of Chapter 270-277, which is our cruelty to animals law, which mandates that you must have a shelter, potable water, and a food source. I think that the food source is, up for debate whether most dogs are eating indoors nowadays. When that law was written, it was a different parameter for all the animals out there. And I would love to, I did ask the dog owner about her behavior training and her homeowner's insurance, but she declined to respond back via email. So I think for just the safety of the public, I think just meeting those two guidelines of the announced inspections twice a year and not allowing the dog to be out unsupervised when nobody is home. And also, even though it's our dangerous dog law of you must be 18 or older to have custody of a dangerous dog, I believe that it should be a responsible adult. So 18 that is, quote unquote, in charge of this animal. So, if the parents of Maya decide to go out to dinner and leave their child at home, that they just know that they can't, let the dog go out. I don't know the ages of the children inside Maya's home, but I just want to make sure that the decisions are being made by a legal adult.
May I ask a question? The twice a year inspections that you're talking about, those would be inspections to see that the fencing was in order, because currently it's not in order.
Correct.
And so did the owner indicate that they're going to make the fencing up to the expectations of the nuisance dog order?
She has not replied back, and she was very understanding of what I was going to come to the board with. I didn't get any pushback in any way, but she did not provide any communication regarding solutions.
And so what would your next steps be in that case? If you don't see a fencing solution implemented that meets the nuisance order, would you start citing her at that point, or?
At that point, she is in violation of the town's order, and under 140, 157, it would be one of those violations written under that chapter of law. I would rather work with her and get a solution. No offense to the revenue for Norfolk, but I think her money is better spent in updating her fence rather than the general fund. Obviously, if there is pushback and there is a problem with accomplishing that, then the appropriate action would be citations.
Gotcha. Thank you.
And I don't think that, and I don't know this for sure, but Maya is very geriatric. She literally has a hard time ambulating. She has a lameness. It's somewhat astonishing to me that even with all that, that she still went after the neighbor's dogs.
A little adrenaline can
Yes.
do a lot. And so when would you, so we make this declaration, and so when would you anticipate your first visit would be? Like, how much time do you give her to make those repairs to the fence?
So I think a reasonable amount of time, if the select board did decide to amend that order, I would wait for that to be served via certified mail, follow up the next week saying, I would like to work with you and find a solution for how we can get this done in a reasonable time frame. And most likely within, a month or two afterwards, I would like to inspect. There was a couple of structural things. The fence posts right by the gate post, they were definitely old, sagging, and swaying. So I would rather have this handled now before the ground freezes, and be able to just button it up and close this situation out, and then go back, every 6 months, and just make sure that everything is still copacetic.
And just to go back, you said that the owner, when you talked to her, was agreeable to only having Maya be outside when someone was home?
I had expressed to her that I felt that having the dog outdoors when there's no person present is a liability for not just Maya, the victims, and the dog owner. But again, it doesn't meet the codes for mass law as far as adequate shelter and water. And she did not give me any negative pushback in any way about saying that I wanted to do, inspections and that I think it's safer to have your dog indoors when you're not available.
So I guess my feeling is the twice-a-year inspections, I think, seems awesome. And I think that having her only be out if somebody is home is also a reasonable thing to say. I think it gets a little bit more gray when we talk about the age of somebody being home, because that seems a little bit more arbitrary on our part. I don't know how you feel about that, but I think if we said twice-a-year inspections, and we have your assurances that that'll be fairly soon, right? Because we need that fencing in order.
Yes.
And then I love your philosophy of partnering with the owners rather than going citation first and partnering after. I think that's fabulous, so thank you. And that's what I'm thinking. What are you thinking?
And just to update, she did, Maya's owner did satisfy the citation that was written in this incident. So I always check with the town clerk before I come before you. So dog is licensed, vaccinated, and that citation has been paid.
Awesome.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, I would be okay with the recommendation of having someone over the age of 18 be in charge of monitoring the dog if outside. I understand what you're saying, that the threshold for that is kind of hard to manage, especially if they don't have children over the age of 18. But I would really leave that up to Hillary's recommendation. I think either way I'd be fine with it.
Yeah, me too. I'm happy to support that. I just, The reason I'm hesitating on the age, it feels like all the recommendations other than that part, we seem to be really grounded in the law and regulations, and whereas the age seems a little bit more, a little harder for us to back up. But
Sure.
for Maya's sake, and for the sake of the neighbors, I think it's an excellent recommendation.
Yeah,
It's considering the needs of the dog and the safety of the community, so
correct.
I'm fine with that.
Especially if the owner didn't have any kind of grounded issue with any of the recommendations that she was
Absolutely.
bringing forward for
I-
this meeting.
I agree.
I would say that if she does have any blowback or pushback in this, I would be more than willing to be in touch with Amanda and say, let's discuss this again. So I have no problem with that coming back before you.
Excellent. So it feels like, thank you, first of all, for your work for the town, and it feels like your recommendation is solid in terms of what Maya's needs are and the safety of the community.
That's the quickest dog issue I have brought before this board.
No, we didn't make the motion
Oh,
yet.
yeah.
There's no change.
Now she's jinxed us. Now she's jinxed us.
Okay, so are we making the motion as documented here, or are we amending it in any way, shape, or form?
You would amend it.
To remove 18, right?
To, yeah,
Okay, so
define the age of the person.
to define or not define?
Well, that's the question.
Not defined, that's
Not
fine.
defined, okay.
The only thing I was mirroring off of is the same statute, which handles both nuisance and dangerous, and you cannot have custody of a dangerous dog with anyone under 18 years old.
Got it, okay.
So I'm fine with if they want to, not, if you guys don't want to include that for the nuisance section. I definitely, there is tort law for if the dog were to be left with someone under 7, but I don't think that would happen.
Seems like that's another problem.
Right,
Right.
right.
Right. Bigger problem.
It's yeah. So I'm fine with leaving the age out of it and just the twice-a-year inspections, and that the dog is not left outside when nobody is home.
Perfect.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So with that, I move that the board vote to modify the nuisance dog order issued by the Select Board on September 10th, 2013 to add announced visits 2 times per calendar year by an animal control officer, and Maya will be under constant in-person supervision when outdoors in the fenced-in area.
Second. All those in favor, sorry, all those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you so
Still
much,
the
Hillary.
fastest.
Now you can say it. Thank you so much, Hillary.
Absolutely. Have a good night,
You
guys.
too.
Okay, and number 5 is please consider the approval of the contract for town administrator. We need to table that at this time. Well, we're so excited to say that we are in negotiations with Mr. Justin Casanova Davis. We have regulations that need to be going through, and the background check is not yet completed. I guess the colleges are all on vacation, and they're having a hard time getting some of that information. So we're going to have to table that until
The next select board.
the
meeting.
next select board meeting. Thank you, Amanda. So we have to move the second motion.
Second.
I move that the board table the item to approve the town administrator's contract pending a successful background check until the next select board meeting.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. Number 6, please consider the approval of a contract for the deputy chief of police. And,
Ms. Palladini is on Zoom.
excellent. And is the chief here? No?
Hard to miss him.
I know, I thought Andrew said that he was in the other room, so that's why I was curious about that.
Oh, maybe when we said chief.
He meant,
That
we
was
got
the
our
confusion.
chiefs
Pair of chiefs, that's
confused.
right.
We got the other chief. 2 awesome chiefs we are lucky to have in this town. And so, Michelle.
I am here. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
And we can
Great,
hear
how
you
are
as
you?
well.
Excellent. Do you have anything to say before we talk about this, or anything you want to?
I don't. If you have questions you might have, other than that, I'm looking forward to moving forward.
Awesome. Do you have any questions?
None whatsoever. Just very excited to see you in this role. Thank you.
Me
Thank
too.
you. As am I. I appreciate it.
Me too. So, that being said, there we go.
I move that the board vote to approve a contract with Michelle Palladini for Deputy Chief of Police effective September 11th, 2022 to June 30th, 2025.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Michelle. Congratulations.
Congratulations, Michelle.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Going on to number 7. Please consider setting a date for the November special town meeting. I know we've had some conversations about, well, you were the one who caught the problems with the original proposed dates, and I think Amanda's done a ton of work, and we have the 15th is available to us. Is that correct?
Judith did a lot of work.
Judith did a lot of work. Thank you, Judith.
I was about to say, I was going to take credit for Judith's work there, but
Judith did a lot of work. So tell Judith thank you. Did a lot of work to check out and make sure the 15th was available to us. So it seems like because November 8th is the election and November 22nd is Thanksgiving week, and that seems not maybe a great week for a meeting, that leaves us with November 15th. So that sounds good to me. Does that sound good to you?
sounds great.
Awesome. Go ahead.
I move that the board vote to hold the November special town meeting at King Phillip Middle School on November 15th, 2022.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it. Okay.
It is noted.
It is noted. Please consider number 8. Consider opening the November special town meeting. And do you want to talk about that, or is there anything to talk about? We're just opening the warrant, right?
Yes.
It's a pretty
Dry.
rootness action, and so,
In the future, we will bring forward some, obviously the articles and discuss them, and
box that is the warrant. Awesome.
we will have a discussion about the process as well.
Thank you very much.
I move that the board vote to open a warrant for a special town meeting to be held on November 15th, 2022, and close the warrant for this meeting on September 1st, 2022.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And the ayes have it again. Number 9, please consider the appointment of Debbie Grover to the Council on Aging. Debbie, do you want to say hello? Are you here?
Does not appear so.
Debbie is not here. Well, thank you, Debbie, for welcome. I should be saying welcome. Debbie,
Welcome back.
Welcome back. Debbie was a fantastic member of the Council on Aging when I first joined the board and was instrumental in choosing Sherry Norman as our last director.
Excellent. Welcome back, Debbie. I am looking forward to meeting you at some point, and
I move that the board vote to appoint Debbie Grover to the Council on Aging effective July 14th, 2022, with a term expiring on June 30th, 2023.
second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it. Thank you, Debbie. Looking forward to meeting you. Number 10 says, please consider the awards of various surge procurement contracts, including office, DPW supplies, and water sewer chemicals. This is where I would usually turn to Blythe, but I'll just read what it says here. Is that fine?
These are, yes, I have an entire stack of things for you guys to sign afterwards
Excellent.
to celebrate. But yes, this is just an annual signing of contracts that Surge negotiates on our behalf for us to get better rates. Whether or not we utilize the services, is if we need them, but at least we get the better rates. And, yeah.
It just allows us to, it allows us to negotiate with them. It isn't a guarantee that we'll use those services.
Correct.
Awesome.
I move that the board authorize the chair to award bids for surge water and sewer chemicals, DPW supplies, office supplies, and paper to various bidders for fiscal year 2023.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And the ayes have it. Number 11, please consider the following request for the use of Town Hill. I'm just going to go ahead and read these. Zealous Beer Company's participation in Discovery Day on September 10th, 2022, with a rain date of September 11th, 2022. And Zealous Beer Company's pop-up beer and food events, including a one-day wine and malts license and a one-day live entertainment licenses for September 18th, 2022, and September 25th, 2022. And we have had Zealous Beer times to our Town Hill, and it is a beloved event by our community, and I have no concerns or questions. Do you?
None whatsoever. I do believe that when we say their participation in Discovery Day refers to the Norfolk Small Business Association's highlight and showcase for all of the small businesses in town. So it's going to be great to have them there
Awesome.
while we're going around and meeting everybody again. So looking forward to that.
And there was a lot of debate and making sure, again, Judith worked very hard with Chief Stone on the area, as this is the first time that they'll be offering alcohol at Discovery Day, but to make sure that it's kept safe for everybody and not, it won't be all over Town Hill, but it will be cordoned off.
Controlled.
Yes. So
Awesome.
the diagram is there if you'd like to review.
So thank you to Judith, and thank you to Chief Stone for considering those things, and
Motion time. I move that the board authorize the use of Town Hill for the following events. Zealous Beer Company's participation in Discovery Day on September 10th, 2022, with a rain date of September 11th, 2022, and Zealous Beer Company's pop-up beer and food events, including one-day wine and malts licenses and one-day live entertainment licenses for September 18th, 2022, and September 25th, 2022.
second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and the ayes have it. It's a trend. It's a trend. Number 12 says, please consider the approval of the Bike to Beach Road event for September 17th, 2022.
Typically, we would ask if public safety had any concerns. Clearly noted here they have no concerns.
Correct.
And so,
And this is something that's been done the last couple of years too, that there shouldn't be any concerns, and it's early in the morning as well, but.
awesome. So as long as the chiefs give their thumbs up, I have no questions.
I was just curious about what beach they're biking to.
It's a very long race.
Must be in Rhode Island because it goes off the map.
Yikes.
I have the the packet was too large to, so I moved the entire route, but I will, I can send it to you and let you.
Yeah, I was
No,
just curious.
that's-
Yeah, it's
That's
okay.
okay. I'm guessing it's a beach in Rhode Island.
Yep.
Given
All right, that being said, I move that the board vote to approve the Bike to the Beach Road Race for September 17th, 2022.
Second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it. Number 13 is a discussion item, and it's please discuss a plan to utilize the FARP, ARPA money. Included in our packet is a recommendation. We had talked about this before, about how to allocate the money. We are not, when I had talked to Blythe about this, when it came up before, and I really felt like if we could kick the can a little bit down the road until we had the new town administrator, so that his voice was also in that decision-making. But I know the chief wants to, we have had some talks about a ladder truck, and he wanted to come up and join us.
And there is a diagram and picture of the ladder truck, if that's included in the packet, if you want to review that.
Welcome back.
Yes.
It's been not too long.
Not too long. So I have a little bit of bad news. I spoke with the fire chief from the People's Fire District, and they did field another offer where the municipality did pay them up front, and they already have the money in hand. We did have a discussion. I did say I had a meeting today, and that, you know, obviously what we had discussed and kind of preliminary negotiated to a price. I said, you know, I had spoken with Todd as well, and he's like, hey, we're okay to, we just have to hold the timeline and make sure we go through the proper process. And, it wasn't a sure thing for us, obviously, because it would, require approval and votes and going through the proper processes, and they chose to go with the sure thing, and money in hand. So that opportunity has passed us by, which is okay. I'll keep my eyes and ears open and keep searching. I've been in contact with several manufacturers trying to see what's on the demo and stock unit circuit, which usually saves us money. Obviously not the amount of revenue that we would be saving with a slightly used piece of apparatus, but still, working hard to make sure we can address the needs and meet the needs, but also, be very conscious of, the fact that things are costing a lot more. The fire apparatus, the trends are, there have been 3 price increases in 1 calendar year, which is kind of unheard of. The prices continue to soar, so, felt like it was important to be able to share, with the board as well that, I know there's a lot of potential uses for ARPA funds and important things that the town needs and the town is working towards, whether it be enhancements of different types for different departments. But it is a definite need of the fire department. From my perspective, I have a very aging fleet. My newest piece of large apparatus is a 2007, and that actually being one of the apparatus that is showing the most wear. I have this year, or since my tenure here, which is almost 3 years now, happy to be going into another 3 hopefully here pretty soon. I have had our primary engine 2, out of service, for several months. This year alone, I had to make arrangements to borrow a reserve engine from Rentham to cover that void for us. And it is a need. One of the things I was trying to do with the used Quint purchase was provide us some redundancy so that if we have some type of issue or failure with one of our engines, I don't have to borrow one from a neighboring town. Obviously, in our line of work, we do what we have to do. We adapt and overcome. But I just wanted to emphasize the importance of us doing something to reduce the overall age of whether that be an engine or a truck right now. To get something new the prices are just astronomical. It's 1.3 million for a stock truck. That is pretty of that, because going up, that's actually based on a stock truck that is based on 2 price increases ago. And the lead time on the apparatus now is exceeding 400 days. For a ladder truck, I was told today by 3 manufacturers it would take 2 years, even if we ordered it today, before we would have something here. The only positive being that we could secure today's pricing, which is still not, it's still pretty high, but the prices are still going up, and they don't see them stabilizing from an industry standpoint for 18 months to 2 years. So I just wanted to be cognizant of that, knowing that the department's coming up on hard stops in terms of being outside of recommended consensus standards with the ladder truck in particular. The engines, engine 2 is definitely showing its age and wear. It being the primary workhorse, it's been beat up and used. It's functioning, but I'm weighing those, and if there's a way for us to address either of those, I think the time to maybe strike the iron is now. Units that I've been in conversations with the various distributors and manufacturers in the Northeast that serve our area, that I've been in contact with everything, just like in the regular motor vehicle market, is just going like hotcakes. There's nothing, where I used to could go on and see, 15 or 20 stock units and could have a delivery time of, on a stock unit, I could, see something here by December of this year. Stock units, they don't exist, and ones that are for this year have been bought and paid for, and everybody else has them. So, it puts us in a little bit of a predicament having an aging fleet, and my fear is that we're going to have some type of potential failure of an apparatus, and I'm not going to be able to have a quick solution, other than borrowing something from another town, which, again, that depletes their fleet. And then what if their primary engine goes down and they need their reserve back? Then, so I just wanted to be paying closer attention to that. I know we had submitted and done capital plans and things of that nature. And obviously, when you're busy planning, life happens, right? So Engine 2 has just not been as reliable as I would want it to be. It is on its last, 4 or 5 years of serviceable life as per NFPA. But I just wanted to make that a point of emphasis. If there is, a way that we could use some ARPA funds to, injecting some newer apparatus into the fleet, whether that be the ladder truck or an engine, would definitely reduce my overall fleet age, which, we have our new of everything taking longer and costing a lot. And, it'd be advantageous to the town to be able to even, be able to put a hold on a stock that we know is in the queue that we have a finite time frame on versus waiting 2 years. Which is where I'm primarily searching. The build to order is kind of out the window from my perspective right now because of the cost and the lead time.
Right. So, Chief, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go right ahead.
And just to emphasize the prospect that you had identified previously that you were originally coming to us with tonight, you had noted before that a stock new ladder truck is running about 1.3 million prior to a couple of price increases.
Right.
What was the proposed offer for this used truck that you had identified?
$895,000.
$895,000. So when we talk about, the benefit of prospects like that, I just want to kind of put that into perspective for everybody. Engine 2, we allocated money, I believe, from ARPA already for repairs, correct?
Yes.
The state of the truck that you just identified, is that pre or post repairs?
That is, we were hoping that I could say to you, hey, everything's great. But last night, one of my shift commanders sent me a picture. He got in the truck to respond to a call, and the grab handle fell off in his hand, and he almost fell out of the truck. Now, that's not, mechanically, the truck is doing much better. Our new mechanics at DPW and our partnership with Foxborough Fire Department and our motor fleet management they've been able to address some issues and work through some of those things so that it is running. We're not having to take it out of service every other day for some type of regen issue or computer issues, which is good. It feels a little more dependable than it has. With that being said, the residual value that may be left in it is, I think that's where obviously we had to get it fixed for I think it was $20,000 we had to take of ARPA funds to make the necessary repairs. We had to get it fixed because we need an apparatus, and there's no way to get another one in here
In that time frame.
in any time frame, that would be reasonable. And the other piece of that is there is residual value, even though, the truck is worn, there's some residual value. I've had an apparatus broker, and I looked at what the prospects of trade would be. The trade, none of the manufacturers want to, invest much money in it, but going straight to a broker that will buy it and sell it themselves, there's some residual value, and it is probably, $20,000 or $30,000 in it, which that triggered me to bring this to the table, because I don't want to keep dumping $20,000 repairs into something that's only worth $20,000. And so that's kind of where we are with that engine. And I did discuss with our mechanics at length to determine, what would be a course of action if we had the opportunity to replace an engine. Even though engine 1 is older, they were like, get rid of engine 2, keep engine 1. We have less problems with it. It's been dependable. It just keeps chugging along, and that was the consensus. So I just wanted to make sure to bring that to the table and address it. And like I said, we're in dire straits, but there's been enough recurring issues with it that it bothers me. Like, we had a major repair a year and a half ago, and yet we just had to do another major $20,000 repair a couple months ago. So I'm like, we keep limping it, and the lead time is 2 years on a new one.
Now's the time to start
Yeah.
considering it. And then just to finish up my questions, 1.3 million was the estimate you gave for a stock new ladder truck. What is the going rate for a stock new engine?
About 7. So I got numbers ranging from 735 to 795, depending on how it's outfitted, or what, whether it has foam system, generators, those kind of, depending on. But that's the going range right now.
Got it. Thank you.
So I just want to say, I appreciate very much your having your opportunities like that. One, to study for the town and to get a good value. And so thank you for that. I'm sorry it fell through. And so I appreciate you coming forward and sharing that. It's good to know. We're in the difficult position of saying if we spend money there, then you can't spend money here. And it's a constant juggling, just like in, your home finances. If you buy this, then not that. And so, but I hear what you're saying in terms of, if something were to happen, it's not like there's a quick answer out there. There's not a quick solution. So it does put us at a place where we could possibly not be able to have the service that we usually are accustomed to providing for the town of Norfolk. So thank you. And it's valuable to know that.
And thank you for your, time and consideration. And I know that, a lot of department heads have needs and pressing needs, and I don't want to take away from any of that, or I just wanted to be able to express that this is something that, while I was contemplating and measuring everything we're trying to prioritize as a department, this was one that keeps popping up as a big one.
And it's going to pop up again, right? It's definitely going to pop up again. So thank you for bringing that to our attention.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Does anybody else have any comments on
Is-
ARPA?
And any other ARPA comments? I think that, I don't think so.
Not from my end.
I don't think so. All right, and then, for the town administrator board updates, I'm just gonna read this, is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
It says, this item is on the agenda in case there's any topics, given this date is no longer giving COVID updates. It's been removed from the agenda, and information will be continued on the Board of Health website. I think we were gonna discuss,
Yes.
is this where we
Sorry,
were gonna
the-
discuss it?
The agenda background was not updated to reflect the change to the
Okay.
discussion of the interim organizational operating structure.
Excellent. And so I just wanted to discuss that. Is that okay? Is that okay with you?
Absolutely.
So we are in, I'm just for the copious number of people out there, the viewing audience, we are in between town administrators. So we are currently negotiating with Justin Casanova Davis. I think his tentative start date is August 29th. And so we had talked to Todd about that and didn't reach a solution on that. So we don't have an internal candidate for the interim position. We had kind of talked about sharing that responsibility with the board and we could each take our committees and so that we can offer that stability for the town.
Okay, that makes sense to me.
Awesome. So, is this where we can then talk about our calendar?
Yes.
Yes, so if
Yes,
we're in
so-
agreement that we'll ask Scott to find somebody outside to bring in short-term, part-time, then I think what we'd like to do is schedule another select board meeting. You said Tuesday was no, I can't remember why now.
No, we could do
But-
Tuesday, if we could get a solution, so, you know, if you have something to talk about and vote on, you know, that this is what you're going to do, and then you can continue
So
and
we could-
negotiate if you want, or if Scott has somebody that he can bring forward by Tuesday. We could do that, we would just post an agenda quickly.
So in my mind, it would be a short agenda that would include, maybe it could include approving Justin Casanova Davis if we can get that background check by that time. And then it could include a motion from Scott to bring somebody forward as a short-term town administrator, like a motion from.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Does that sound good?
Sounds great.
And it could be a Zoom meeting?
That's
That's
where
the
the
tricky-
potential trick is. So right now, as of today, well, as of the 15th, tomorrow, we won't be able to continue to have Zoom meetings. The board would have to be in person in order to host the meeting, unless the state votes and agrees to continue the parameters that were set forth during COVID.
The House already
right.
did. The House
I
already
know,
voted
but
to
they-
extend, but
They
the,
put an amendment on there, did you read? The amendment said that all meetings, they voted to extend it, but then all meetings had to be broadcast or videoed. And so what I read was that it would be a hardship to towns. It'd mean every planning board meeting, every zoning board meeting, every single thing, our local cable would have to be doing all of those meetings. So somebody had attached that amendment to the bill, is what I thought I read. And so-
perhaps, and that might be the case, but the fact that the overarching theme was that the ability to execute a hybrid remote access meeting was to be extended until March of 2023.
Yes.
Right?
I saw that. That's the intention, I think, of the state, but I think where the reticence comes in is somebody's attached this piece that I think would be potentially a hardship for towns, especially a small town like Norfolk.
As I understand it, the Senate passed it, and the House is coming back and saying no.
I see. So
So
this
it's-
piece of the legislation is where they're currently running into a gap to being able to have.
I
Either way-
think if pre-COVID, you had already agreed that that was how you were gonna conduct your meetings, you'd be fine, but the town of Norfolk
We did
does
not.
not
Did
have
not.
that,
Yeah.
so we're subject to go back to.
Okay. So can you come in for a short meeting Tuesday?
Yes.
I can come in for a short meeting Tuesday.
At what time?
Was some conversation about it, is that Scott has retired as the HR person, but he's agreed to come back and work on finishing up some contracts and finishing up a couple of the negotiations with the union. And so in a very limited capacity, doing HR business only, that is Scott's role right now. So just in the interest of transparency, we've asked him to do just a few hours a week. He's keeping a log of his time and communicating with the lovely Judith. And so that is another action step that has happened in our attempt to juggle a few balls at the same time. Is there
Very good.
anything else you want to
That's
add to
everything
that?
from my end, no?
And I want to also then, before we go to the warrants, I just want to say a big thank you. Many of the department heads have reached out. People are working above and beyond. I know Amanda and Judith are going above and beyond to keep our town going forward. And so thank you to those departments, and thank you to everybody for bearing with us as we make this exciting change, but messy, this messy transition. Exciting, but messy transition. So, that being said, we have some warrants.
I move that the board approve 6 warrants for the period of June 21st, 2022 through July 5th, 2022, as printed on the agenda for this meeting.
Second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, the ayes have it.
Sorry, can I
Oh,
revise that?
you may.
There were a couple that were revised from previous weeks, so it's actually 9, sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, sorry, 8 for the period of June 17th to July 5th. My apologies.
So friendly amendment?
The agenda is correct, yes. But the agenda background was not for the motion, sorry.
But the motion is correct?
No,
No, the motion, so the motion should say 8 warrants beginning June 17th, going to July 5th.
yes, my apologies.
Okay, do we need to say it again, or can we just call that a friendly amendment?
Say it again, just to make sure, please.
I move that the board approve 8 warrants for the period of June 17th, 2022 to July 5th, 2022, as printed on the agenda for this meeting.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
The ayes have it, and then we have some minutes.
This one's good, right?
Does it have 2?
It does.
June 21st and
It
April 5th?
does, yeah, we're good.
Okay, all right.
I move that the board approve the regular meeting minutes of April 5th, 2022 and June 21st, 2022.
Second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, the ayes have it. And
Thank you so much, Amanda, for going through and putting all this together, too. It's fantastic.
on your own, so thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
There were a lot of changes this week. I
Yeah.
apologize
No.
for some
No.
of the
All good, and we need
confusion.
a final motion from you, sir.
I move to adjourn.
Second, all those in favor? Aye. The ayes have it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Chief.